what has been the biggest struggle then for you mentally and emotionally in the last couple of years?
The biggest struggle is trying to ascend to the mountaintop. And the reason I say that, bro, is...
To get to the mountaintop?
Yes. Trying to
What
climb.
is the mountaintop?
I think the mountaintop is different for everyone.
Is that a goal?
For me, the mountaintop is checking boxes.
Okay.
Right? Like, it's checking boxes.
Give me an example.
An example. Okay, great. Now I host my own show on sports. Speak for yourself. Check. Oh, okay, great. Now I've partnered with Oprah on a book. Oh, another book. Oh, a third book.
Yeah.
Check. Okay, but the book has to best sell. Check. It's just like, it's just trying to ascend, trying to do, and not being dejected when you don't. And then, bro, I also think trying to figure out our place on this earth.
Yeah.
I think we're all trying to do that. When we remove the masks and the makeup, figuratively speaking, of our life, we're all trying to figure out, what value am I providing to the people I'm interacting with?
Yeah.
What value am I providing to society? Where is my place in life? And I've been constantly, my biggest struggle the last couple of years is trying to really figure that out. And now that it appears I figured that out, trying to sustain the heat, and the hate that comes with that.
The heat and the hate, huh? Because I don't think people understand that once you have audience and attention, there will be heat and hate. No matter how pure your intentions are, no matter how kind you try to be, there'll be hate.
But you know what I've realized, man, and my co-host Marcellus Wiley says this: criticism is the cost of praise.
It is.
We don't realize that enough. Like recently, for those watching sports news, Naomi Osaka, #1 tennis player in the world just a couple years ago, she tried to stop a tennis match because somebody said you suck. Somebody yelled you suck, and she went to the judge and was like, and went to the ump and was like, yo, can we stop the match? Like, can we get them kicked out?
Is this recently?
Recently.
I didn't see this.
2 days ago. So,
Wow. She tried to stop the match and say, kick that person out.
Correct. And at the end of the post-game presser, tears came into her eyes for different reasons. And I was just like, criticism is the cost of praise. And
if you don't want criticism, don't play the game.
It's like you don't have a choice.
Don't play. Don't show up.
You can't play if you don't want criticism.
Yeah.
It's not even like you were advising don't. It's like, yo, criticism comes with it.
Here's the funny thing, not to cut you off, is that you're going to be criticized at the top or criticized for doing nothing. So you might as well do something you enjoy. Because if you're sitting on the couch and you have all this potential, but you don't do something, the people closest to you are to say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
This person has so much potential. Give me their potential.
Yeah.
I could do something great with this, but they're just sitting on their couch depressed, worried about people's thoughts or opinions. There's a price either way.
You got to pay it either way.
You got to pay it either way. Maybe it's greater price as you're climbing and dealing with the more attention, but there's a price either way.
You know what else, man? And I've realized this too, and it's hit me in the face. You can't call for attention and hang up.
Yeah, someone look at me. Oh, but only say nice things about me.
You can't. And whether we intentionally call for attention or we don't, you can't call for attention and hang up. Like the boy who cried wolf, like us in our friend groups, like a child in a house cries and cries. Mother asks, what's wrong? Father asks, what's wrong? Nothing. And what are you crying for? Right. You can't call for attention and hang up. And so I think there's just a lot of learning and discovering that I'm doing on this journey.
Yeah. The emotional regulation, it's funny, I was just interviewing a neuroscientist / brain surgeon. He's an expert in both areas. So he studies the brain and the mind, right? The thoughts. And after this 2-hour conversation, the whole thing came down to the #1 skill to have is the ability to emotionally regulate your feelings and how thoughts, the brain, and the mind are connected to feelings and the ability to emotionally regulate them. Not saying that you're not going to have wide range of emotions, but the ability to regulate under pressure, under stress, so that you can get into flow, that you can get back to your mission, your vision, and not be in chaos mode. You can defend yourself rationally, essentially, in times of chaos. And he said that's kind of what it comes down to. If I could teach a skill, it'd be the skill of emotional regulation. And I think the farther we try to strive to unlock our potential, the more we need to learn that, because the more people are going to be coming at us, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. One, I think that's a phenomenal thought. I think it was Michael Jordan's trainer who said emotions are dangerous, but controlled anger or controlled aggression is like the most
dangerous of all. Yeah. Is that Tim Grover?
Yes,
yeah,
Tim Grover.
He's great.
It's like the most dangerous of all.
Yeah, because being emotional and reacting, you're going to foul out. You're going to do something stupid.
Correct.
Which I did many times in multiple sports. And then you learn the lesson, oh, my emotional reaction gets me on the bench or hurts my team.
And you know what's interesting? We're talking sports, but this is a life conversation.
Man. Yeah, it's life.
Because while you can say foul out literally, figuratively speaking, if you're at the grocery store and then you get upset and then you get emotional and then you get into it with the cashier, emotionally fouling out. If you're talking to a friend and then you get into it with your friend and then you say something you shouldn't have, emotionally fouling out. Relationship oriented. If you're talking to somebody and you're dating and then you get into it. So we're talking a sports conversation, but it is the controlling of your mind. But to me, bro, everything starts with the mind.
Yeah.
Both our greatest limitations and our greatest accomplishments. To me, it's all up here.
Absolutely. Well, what has been the biggest, you talked about living a life without failure or fear of failure.
Living a life without failure.
What is the biggest fear for you in the last couple of years then? And now that you've, let's call it broken through, right? You were already really successful. I mean, you're an NFL player and had a career in sports, TV and all these things, but broken through to a different level. What is now the greatest fear?
Ooh. That's why I like talking to you.
Hey, man.
That's why I like talking to you. My biggest fear is becoming complacent. My biggest fear is not realizing I am living inside of a box that is around me. My biggest fear is not realizing, hey, there's a door you haven't yet opened, and what you think is a world is actually just a locker that you are inside of. One of my favorite scenes of any movie, it's the end of Men in Black. I believe it's Men in Black 1. And at the end of the movie, they open up a locker and they open up the locker and they realize there's an entire another world out there. They thought they were living in their world, but there's such a bigger world out there. And my greatest fear is not pushing beyond a boundary because I don't even realize the boundary is set because I didn't set it because somebody else set it. And I've been living inside of somebody else's box or somebody else's boundary. The reason we don't achieve our highest highs, bro, isn't because we're not skilled. It isn't because we're not talented. It isn't even necessarily because we don't want it. It's because we don't realize how high we could achieve.
Right.
I think that's the biggest limiting reactant of realizing our highs. One of my favorite stories, if not my favorite story of Roger Bannister.
4 Minute Mile.
4 Minute Mile. For those that aren't familiar, Roger Bannister, scientists believed it was physically impossible to run a mile in under 4 minutes. Quick history lesson for everybody. That's my favorite story. Scientists believe it's physically impossible to run a mile in under 4 minutes. May 5th, 1952, it had never been done in 2,000 years, but by May 6th, Roger Bannister, Oxford, England, runs a mile, 3 minutes, 59 seconds. Within 2 years, 10 people ran a mile in under 4 minutes. Now, the world record for the mile, 3 minutes, 43 seconds, and roughly 1,800 people have done so. Why? Because one man, Roger Bannister, removed the barriers that other people set around him. One man said, you know what? I'm not going to subscribe to that barrier. One man said, I'm not going to subscribe to goals. One man said, I'm not going to subscribe to that. And he broke the dam open for everybody. And after that dam was broken for everybody, the whole rest of the running world proceeded to run through it. So my biggest fear, bro, is living inside of a box that somebody else set before me.
So if you don't have goals to break or reach, what are you reaching for? Like, what's beyond a barrier that you're not trying to accomplish?
For me, I'm reaching for movement.
Okay.
That's all it is. I'm reaching for progress. I'm moving forward. I'm moving forward.
So it's not reaching an end goal.
No, it's moving.
Yes.
It's moving forward, man. Like you're going to do another episode tomorrow, and hopefully it's better than the day, and then the next tomorrow, and hopefully it's better than that day, and then you're just going to keep moving. Like, let's not get so bogged down by, but I didn't get this. Oh, but I got that. Just keep moving forward. When you go to a beach and you end up standing in the ocean. Eventually, after about 5 minutes, you'll look back and be like, yo, I done drifted way far away. And you just drifted further than you ever thought. That's where I'm at now. Let's keep moving forward.
Yeah.
We get so caught up in, I want to be married by 26,
Yes.
and I want to have 2 kids, and I want to have bought my first home by 29, and by 35, I want to be done having kids, and I want to have 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls, preferably twins, because that would be easiest.
Yes.
Bump all that.
Yeah.
Forget all that goal setting. Goals lead to failure. I want to live the most impactful and significant life I can possibly live. And if I happen to live that life with somebody else, great. And if I don't, great. And at 35, I want to see where I am. And at 30, I want to see where I am.
Yeah.
And I want to just continue to move forward and make progress as a human being. But at the end of the day, bro, the reason we have these goals isn't even because of us. It's because of other people. This blew my mind. And you're a sports guy, so this might blow yours as well. This truly blew my mind. We often debate LeBron James, Michael Jordan, greatest basketball player of all time. Who do you say, sir?
I mean, I'm from Ohio, so I go for LeBron.
Go for LeBron.
I just saw LeBron last night too play, so. I mean, he's still playing at what? He's
at the highest level. Dude's 37 years old, baller.
He just had 10,000 rebounds, 10,000 points, and 10,000 assists.
Beast. Let me blow this Michael Jordan, LeBron James debate open for a second.
Yes.
For those that claim Jordan's the greatest basketball player ever, they claim it primarily for this reason. He went to 6 NBA championships and he won 6. But outside of those 6 NBA championships, Jordan never went back to an NBA Finals. He went 6 times and he won all 6 times. LeBron, on the other hand, has gone 10 times and he's only won 4.
He's more like Tom Brady. You know?
Gone 10, won 4, Jordan won 6 times. Okay, great. Now let's talk about the same exact sport, basketball. Let's talk about the same exact result, first place and or second place, Jordan and LeBron. But now let's talk about a different measuring system, a different metric system, the Olympic Games. In the Olympic Games, Michael Jordan would have 6 golds, no silvers. LeBron would have 4 golds and 6 silvers. On an Olympic scale, 4 golds and 6 silvers is abundantly and clearly greater than 6 golds. But in the NBA scale, 6 golds is better.
Right.
So the question simply comes down to, whose metric system are you using?
Right.
And the problem is, we let other people's metric systems dictate the happiness in our life. Because in the NBA, you finish in second, you leave the court crying and weeping, devastated. The Olympic Games, you finish in second. To a degree, you're elated, depending on what country.
Right.
Why? Because somebody else dictated how we should feel about a certain situation based upon their metric system, not even our own.
Absolutely.
And I'm just done subscribing to other people's metric systems.
I go to the Olympics, that's an accomplishment. I go to the Olympics and get a bronze, I'm like, I medaled, you know.
I'm one of the 3 best in the world
exactly.
at what I do.
Exactly.
But in the NBA, you get 3rd. In the NFL, you finish in 3rd. In the MLB, you finish in 3rd or 4th. You're like, you're petrified. You're distraught.
Exactly.
And I realized, bro, we just subscribe to other people's metric systems.
Yeah.
And we let it dictate our happiness.
Now tell me, okay, I love this approach. I love the philosophy and the mindset. But for someone watching or listening who's like, okay, but I really want to accomplish some goals to feel like I'm accomplishing something because I want it to build because it's always built my confidence when I do accomplish. But I hear you say, but if you don't accomplish this, they're going to hurt your self-esteem. So how do we, if someone's like, I want to write a book this year.
Right.
Do I set a goal to write a book, or is it a journey of writing the book?
Right.
Do I create micro goals on a weekly basis and have accountability? You know, there's going to be deadlines, or how do we think about the process of like completing a project, launching something we want to launch, doing our artwork, creating our music, whatever it might be? How do we then set these things and make them happen?
Right. So I got my master's in sports psychology, and I dedicated my final thesis paper, if you will, for my master's degree to this concept. I elaborate and expound on this concept in a logical, but I will give you a snippet. Because I studied goals so long, I understand there is a use for goals. When you are talking about the micro in order to accomplish something, there is a use for goals. In a relay race, to stick in Olympic sport of track and field, it does not matter how fast we run if we do not get the baton around. So the micro goal needs to be to get the baton around. when I say don't set goals, have an objective with no limitations, I'm talking about a larger principle of life.
Yes.
When you're talking about macro things such as, hey, I just want to write a book, right? In the macro of writing a book, sure. So I want to finish a chapter on Monday, and I want to write a chapter every week, every Monday. If you have a employer who's like, hey, we need this done by this date. Well, within that stance, there is a means to set a goal. You talked about talking to the neuroscientist. You mentioned this pivotal word, flow. In order to achieve flow, flow is simply when you no longer are conscious of time in the midst of a task. In order to achieve flow, you need automatic feedback, autonomous feedback. In order to get that feedback, you need to set goals.
Yes.
So there are principles, objectives in life within micro constructs where goals have value. I'm talking about the macro look of life, where goals will do more damage than they will success.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Or at least goals will just be a limiting reactant.
Gotcha.
Because I always think, what if Roger Bannister wasn't just trying to break the 4-minute mile? How much faster could he have gone? You never know. He went 3:59.8. He broke it barely. There's literally 0.2 of a second was the difference. How much faster could he have gone? Maybe no faster, but maybe. If my goal, Lewis, was to write a book, I would have wrote a book. I wouldn't have wrote the second one, and I might not have written the third one. So that's where I'm thinking, like, bigger picture, I just want to see people be the best version of themselves.
So how do we, I mean, people are going to fail, but you're saying to reframe failure or to not even look at failure as an option? Because if you don't set the goal, you can't fail in that sense.
Bingo. I thought about this the other time. I don't think people fail. What I say is this, and I thought about this. I didn't fail, I fell. And as long as I get up, I win.
Ooh, yeah. Like a child. A child falls hundreds and thousands of times, and they never think to themselves, maybe this walking thing isn't for me.
Dude.
They fall, and they get up.
We didn't fail. We fell. As long as you get up, you win. The winning isn't getting up. So many people think they failed. They didn't fail.
They stopped.
You stopped.
Yeah.
You didn't fail. You just fell.
And you just never got up.
That's it. A relationship didn't work. You didn't fail at that relationship. And in a divorce, you didn't fail in that relationship. Job, you got fired. You didn't fail. You fell. Get up. You'll look back. You win as long as you get up. Right. So when people keep talking about failure, I don't subscribe to that, but I don't subscribe to goals because ultimately to fail is to put a period where a comma belongs. I ain't doing that no more, big dog.
Or dot.
Exactly.
To be continued. Yeah.
I ain't putting periods where commas belong anymore.
Yeah.
And then we do that too often in our life. It's like, this relationship ended, period. No, this relationship ended. I found somebody who was more suitable for me, who I am more suitable for, and I now ended up significantly happier than I was.
That's a good way to look at it. You know, I feel like it took me a long time to learn how to walk in relationships. I was just falling and wobbling all over the place. You know, I just needed some coordination sooner, but it took me a while to be able to look back and learn the lesson. And I feel like I'm in a much more stable place. You know, I have coordination with my body now in relationships in terms of walking. And some people learn faster in certain areas of life, but it's not about giving up on love, giving up on your career, or your books, or your message, or your art.
Yeah.
It's about learning. A friend of mine posted this video. His name's Devin Rodriguez. He got big on TikTok. I think he's got like 30 million followers in the last 2 years. He started drawing people on subways in New York City. And he would just see them, he would draw them, and he'd hand them a sketch. And people would be blown away. He did a video recently where he started learning in 2010 how to draw. And he posted a photo from 2010 to 2020, every year, his work. And it was ugly the first 5 years. I mean, you'd throw it away. It was so bad, right? It was like a 5-year-old sketch. It was like something I would do right now. It's about how I draw. But now it looks like you take a photo of someone and he can draw it perfectly. But it took him 10 years to master the skill. He didn't fail the first 5 years, 7 years. He fell forward but kept improving. And I think it's a beautiful lesson you're talking about. Don't think of it as failure, think of it as falling.
Bro, and so many people in our life, even our loved ones, want to tell us that we failed. And we begin to believe them.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. We've all committed to believing the lie that we have failed in life. We failed in our school, we failed in our relationships, we failed in our jobs. We haven't actually failed. But if you believe and listen to a lie long enough, you will be convinced that it's the truth.
Yeah.
And what I now practice is detangling so many of the lies that we've been told over time, deconstructing so many of the thoughts that we've believed over time, because it's those thoughts and it's those lies that bog us down.
Yeah.
And bro, this also blew my mind. The Mona Lisa. I went to Paris last summer. I went to the Louvre. And bro, you been to the Louvre?
I think I went to the outside. I didn't go inside.
Yes.
Though, yeah.
So I'm in the Louvre, and there's art everywhere.
Yeah.
There's art on the ceiling. There's freaking art on the walls. Art on the left side. Or there's art everywhere. As I'm walking through this, hundreds of acres seemingly, I see a huge long line.
For the Mona Lisa.
I don't know yet. Though.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I'm like, what in the heck is
Yeah.
this line for? There's art everywhere, y'all. Why y'all standing in the line to see a piece of art? Just look left. I turn the corner, huge line for the Mona Lisa. I was like, I ain't waiting in the line, so I'm gonna just walk by and see. I look at it. It's nice. It's nice.
It's a painting.
It's a painting. Yeah. Painted somewhere from 1503 to 1518, I believe historians suggest. You realize if the Mona Lisa were painted today, might go to garage sale for $20.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. But why? Because the Mona Lisa back then depicted a pale woman with thin lips and a large forehead. And that was the depiction of beauty back then. Depiction of beauty in 2022, sun-kissed skin, thin waist, nice build. But why, bro, do we subscribe to a definition of beauty that somebody else set? Because you can never catch it. The definition of beauty in the 1500s, vastly different than the definition of beauty now. What was beautiful then, we don't value now. What we value now, we don't value then. But either way, we didn't even set it. Back to, why do we let such insignificant people have significance in our lives? And man, I'm just like, what all are we believing
Yes.
that we just don't need to? Now it's all about having an objective with no limitations, similar to that quote, if you shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you land amongst the stars.
So, as opposed to creating a goal then, what are you creating? Are you not creating something? You're creating an objective?
Correct. I'm creating an objective.
So what would it look like